Hello, ladies and gents, boys and girls, people of all ages, sexualities, and identities, and welcome back to another Doctor Who review. And we're finally moving on to the Vampires of Venice. Now, I was going to do this morning, but as you know, it is very hot at the moment, so I hope you're all doing well and keeping very hydrated. Right, let's get into the story though, all worries aside. The Vampires of Venice. The Doctor and Amy and Rory all turn up in Venice for a little bit of a kind of pre-wedding little ritual for Amy and Rory. The pair had always wanted to go to Venice, but when they get there in the Venetian era, they find themselves a little bit curious about what's going on, especially after they hear a man yelling down the river for a woman and her kind of girls to give back his daughter. It turns out that he gave his daughter up to them as a kind of show of goodwill, but what he didn't realize is what they would do to her. It turns out that they had turned her into a vampire, and now she literally can't be out in the sun. Well, she'd be hating this heat, wouldn't she? However, let's get back into it. So essentially the Doctor begins to investigate, and so he sends Amy Pond in as a kind of scapegoat, just so that him and Rory can then break in later on with the father of the daughter and find out exactly why these girls can't come out in the day without having hoods over them. The Doctor later learns that these supposed vampires are actually fish sort of people. They come from a planet far off in the galaxy, but when the Time War came and a lot of other things came, it caused their planet to go into decline. So they've come to Earth in hopes of making a new life for themselves. However, when they go out in the day, they must be careful. It turns out that the woman known as Mother has a lot of her children down in the river waiting to have brides. However, when the Doctor begins to disrupt her plans, it becomes very evident that a lot of these vampire-like girls are not going to survive much longer. The Doctor tries to save the daughter of the man who had required his help in the first place. However, he finds that they are too late. She has fully been converted to one of the fish people, and so she cannot live outside of the walls. When Mother finds out, she feeds her to her offspring. The Doctor then tries to hatch a different plan to get back at her, but of course it is too late, and the father becomes absolutely beguiled in grief and decides to blow himself up to save the Doctor and his friends from the vampire girls. The Doctor manages to reverse the effects that they have done to Amy, and of course they begin to split up in pairs. The Doctor then realizes exactly what's happened and what her overall goal is for Venice as a whole. She aims to drown Venice so that her offspring can live freely and convert as much as they want amongst the Venetians. The Doctor disagrees with this and decides to go up to the tower and confront her. He points out to her that he is a Time Lord, and then she says that he is ancient and he should be in a mausoleum or a museum. The Doctor then begins to joke that he will not let her continue her plan anymore. The pair then go separate ways, and the Doctor manages to destroy the weather vane. When he goes down to offer her a new life, she decides against it and lets her own offspring eat her, especially as they are so hungry and then will eventually die off due to the fact that they can't live very long without the river rising. At the end of the story, Rory begins to look outside of the police box as the Doctor asks what he can hear. The Doctor says, "Silence." Well, that's exactly what you could both hear. And then suddenly goes back inside of the TARDIS. Now, Rory doesn't realise the implications of this, but of course there is a very drastic reason behind why the Doctor was asking Rory this question. It all relies down to the fact that Prisoner Zero said silence will fall. Now, the Doctor at this point in time still has no clue what that means, but let's just say by the time we get to Series 6, that will be a very, very big story plot. So, Vampires of Venice. What would I give this episode out of 10? It's a very solid episode. However, now after listening to Stones of Venice, I can't lie, I feel like both plots are very, very similar. Do I think that this is maybe the stronger one? Yes, I do think it has some stronger elements. However, both stories rely on this idea of Venice being flooded. Now, Venice has been a common known history place to get flooded a lot due to the rise of the water pressure. However, I don't know whether I think that this is brilliant this episode due to the fact that I was really happy with them being vampires. I really didn't like the idea that we went from vampires to vampire fish. It just kind of left a load of fish jokes in this episode, and for that reason I have to give it an 8 out of 10. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next Doctor Who review, which will be Amy's Choice. Until then, goodbye, stay beautiful, you beautiful people.